That's a little high. Hi, everyone. I wanted to come up here and say thank you so much for everyone who came out today. This has been a labor of love for the past 8 months for us. So we are very, very grateful that you all have come out to see what we have to say and see what Fuquay has to offer. I would like to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, Brad Marshall from Greater Culture CrossFit. He is going to talk on identity and culture, and I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Nikki said, grateful for everyone coming out and hanging out with us on this wet, rainy Saturday, but grateful for everyone being here. Would you be surprised if I told you that 90% of people who strive to achieve a goal or set out to do something never actually make it there? I think it's one of the most fascinating statistics that we tend to see, which is we all get really excited about working towards something. Maybe it's a specific physical endeavor, maybe it's changing our appearance, maybe it's finding that job, that career that we really like, finding balance, whatever it might be for any of us, we set out to achieve something. And yet, a large majority of the time, we seem to fall a little bit short. Things don't go the way that we plan, and we've had to change course of direction. It makes sense why a lot of us are employed, why a lot of us have businesses, because we're all passionate about helping people along with their health and their fitness journey figure out how do they navigate the challenges, how do they figure out a way to build habits, engage in movement and nutrition and recovery techniques that allow us to thrive. We don't want to just get by day. We'd ideally like to thrive, feel really good about how we're feeling and the way we're operating. Well, as I've studied a variety of different areas of health and fitness and wellness over the last decade plus, a couple things really come to the top for why I believe most folks end up falling short of where they'd actually like to get to. And those two big pillars are identity and culture. And we're going to look at it through the lens of how is it that the way we think about ourselves, what we believe to be true about ourselves, our identity, plays a huge role in whether or not we're able to work towards our goals. And the second piece is, who are you surrounding yourself with that might help you along the journey? I mentioned over the last decade plus, somebody who's been incredibly fascinated with human performance and how people achieve certain things. And it led me to study this field of sport and performance psychology, which is basically the study of how do people do really cool things? How do they put themselves in pressure situations? How do they put themselves out on a limb, taking risks, and still find a way to succeed? And if you're a sports fan like me, there's no shortage of opportunities to watch and to take in what people are doing. This weekend over in New York, golfers are taking on each other from the US and from Europe in the Ryder Cup. If you're a college football fan, there's dozens of games every weekend. You can name the sport, and there's people putting themselves out there on the line. And then you start looking at people outside of sport, and you look at musicians and artists creating music, putting things out into the world, seeing how well it does, getting up on stage in front of people, speaking. All of these different things humans are doing, they're pushing the envelope of what's possible, and that's essentially what sports psychology is all about. Well, that was a nice foundation, but then I realized it wasn't the end-all be-all, and so studied things like movement and mindfulness and nutrition and all these different things, and it all kept coming back to this same idea that the way people think about themselves, what they believe to be true, is a huge indicator of whether or not they're going to be as successful as they might be. And so my hope is by the time we leave this afternoon, you're going to have some ideas around what your identity is as it relates to health, wellness, and fitness. And then you also might be able to take stock of what is the culture that you are surrounded by that's helping you get to where you might like to be. And Kat did a phenomenal job talking about this idea of habits and these little tiny behaviors that lead us to where we might like to be. There's a phenomenal book called Atomic Habits that gives us a little bit more information about how important these daily behaviors and actions are. And one of the things that James Clear says in this book is that every action you take is a vote for the person you wish to become, the type of person you wish to become. And I think if we frame our daily decisions and behaviors in that light of thinking through, well, what is the type of person I want to become? Who is it that I'm striving to be, whether it's in my family, in my career, in my fitness, in my health, in my wellness. These are all not siloed endeavors. These are all connected. And how we go about our day-to-day actions gives us a really good indication of who we think we are. What's the belief that I have about myself? And James goes on even further to break down and give us this nice diagram of what this actually looks like. We've got our concentric circles up here. For anybody who's a fan of Simon Sinek, or if you've read Atomic Habits, this might be familiar to you. And the problem that we tend to see with why 90% of people tend to fall short is they're very focused on the most outer ring of these circles. And what we're talking about there is we're talking about the outcomes. We start out a goal because there's something we're striving to achieve. Maybe it's we want to move a certain amount of weight in the gym. Maybe it's because we want to sign up for that first 5K, 10K, half marathon. Maybe it's because we want to look or feel a certain way in the clothes that we wear. We're really focused on that outcome. If I can just accomplish this specific task, if I can just lift the weight, if I can just win whatever the event is, I'm going to get really excited. I'm going to be happy, fulfilled, satisfied. But the problem is when we solely focus on those external, those outcome goals, when things get in the way, and they inevitably will, we start to get sidetracked. I did want to do that 10K, but it's raining out again. I'm going to skip the rain or the run for today. It's not really in the agenda. It's not something I really care to. Or, I really did want to look a certain way in the clothes that I'm wearing, but, it's been a little bit challenging. It's tough. I'm a little stressed. I'm going to choose something else. It's amazing how quickly we can push aside some of the outcomes we have because life gets in the way. Things get challenging. So if we take one layer back, if outcomes isn't the end-all be-all, well, then we start looking at this next layer, which is called processes. This is the actual behaviors, the strategies, the actions, the things that we actually want to engage in, the habits that might get us closer to some of those outcomes we're striving towards. And when it comes to processes, this is where we can really make our money. If we can dial in our processes, those habits, it helps us to be a little bit more effective, but it's still not the most important piece of how these habits actually come to be. And for that, we've got to go to the innermost circle, and this is where we start looking at our identity. And through all the research that James did in this book, and he highlights a lot of that, he tended to find time and time again the people who were the most successful, the people who were achieving the type of results we all would aspire to, it came back to who they believed they were. What was the type of person that they not only aspired to be, but they had the confidence, they had the data, they had the behaviors, and they had the actions to back it up. It was what was part of their identity. And it wasn't just, I want to run a 10K, it was, I am a runner. It wasn't just, I like working out for the sake of looking a certain way or feeling a certain way, is I am somebody who does movement every single day or a majority of the days, right? If it was something career-wise, it wasn't just like, I enjoy going to work or this, that. I am the type of person who engages in this type of behavior. And so when he started to peel back these layers, just attacking behaviors, just attacking goals, they were okay, but it wasn't seeing the same results as if somebody truly believed they were the type of person who would engage in those behaviors. It just became part of their culture, or who they were, essentially. And so I want us all to take an opportunity now to think through the identities that you might take on. Because if we know identity is so important for our overall health and wellness, well, it makes sense if we had a better understanding and awareness of who do we think we actually are. So we're going to start with, who do you want to be? And the first place we can look is by filling in the blank with this idea of define your I am. Now, if I asked you to fill in the blank with whatever comes to top of mind for you after I would ask the question, who are you? Those would probably be some pretty strongly held beliefs, parts of your identity. It might be, I am a husband, I'm a mom, I am a teacher, I am a fitness professional, I am a physical therapist, a massage therapist. These are things we've attached ourselves to because of experience, because of our growth and our upbringing or whatever those might be. Those belief statements, those pieces of our identity make up how we see ourselves, the decisions we make, the way we want to portray ourselves to the world around us. And so if we're actually interested in making improvements in our health, wellness, and fitness, do your belief statements, the who you think about yourself, who you believe yourself to be, do they align with where you're trying to go and what you want to succeed in terms of some of those outcomes or those processes? If they don't, it's okay, because now we can actually take the steps to truly look at and define what those could be. So this is where you identify the type of person you want to be. If you want to be somebody who focuses on meals that include pieces of protein and carbs and fats, or you make choices that align with the way you either want to look, feel, or perform, then you would have to take on that belief of I am that type of person who maybe engages in some meal prep or meal prep service or thinks about what I'm eating before I do. Or when it comes to movement and knowing how important that is, it's not just if it fits in my schedule or if it's the right timing or the right place. It's I am somebody who's going to find ways to fit movement in. Maybe that's an at-home workout, going for a walk in between meetings, maybe getting to the gym a certain number of times a week. Even if you're on vacation, maybe there's something there around, I'm gonna go for a walk and enjoy wherever I'm out or where I'm vacationing. We start to build these beliefs. We've got to identify what those are, because then what that's going to allow us to do is now we have to make that vote for ourselves. James Clear said it, every decision and action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to be. If I know what I'm striving towards, maybe it now helps me make decisions that vote for myself. Is this the type of behavior that a person who believes in being strong and healthy and capable would do? Yeah, definitely. Well, let me work towards that. Let me make decisions that continue to put that check mark in the box of who I believe I am. This is where those habits come into play. Having those daily actions actually gives a lot of confidence to the belief that we have. And that's what we're really working towards. We want to build that belief so we can build our identity. So we're picking those small steps, picking those small goals. It continues to build that belief. And then we're going to celebrate the consistency. Who doesn't love appreciating or enjoying the journey? We all have outcomes we want to work towards. We all have things that we're striving towards, but it's really important to make sure we can celebrate those little small wins along the way. The process, you hear a lot of people talk about that, can be just as important. So once I know what my identity is, who I want to be, what am I striving for, what's the type of person who makes those types of decisions, can I stack small decisions time and time again that's going to help me build the belief. And then I'm going to celebrate that. That can be any way that you like. That could be giving yourself an opportunity to go get that new pair of shoes or clothes or whatever it might be. It might just be some praise from self or others, whatever it looks like for you. But celebrate the consistency, building the belief of who you are. This is the foundation for living a happy, healthy, and a little bit more satisfied life, is figuring out who is it that I actually want to be, and am I doing the things that this type of person would actually engage in. Now, this can sound like a lonely adventure. If it's just me working through and trying to figure this out on my own, it's going to get lonely, it's going to get hard, it's going to get challenging, there's going to be bumps in the road. I'm the type of person who does these behaviors, but all of a sudden life happens. I got an injury, got banged up. I'm maybe not able to do the routine and those habits that I consistently was working on. What do I do in that situation? And I think this is where the second piece of our concepts for today really come into play, is that if there's one thing I've learned, and it's part of why I named our gym Greater Culture, is that the people you surround yourself with play a huge role in either the direction that you go, what you're able to achieve, or the things that maybe you're not able to work towards. I've been fortunate to be a part of a lot of teams, a lot of organizations. Grew up in a family with 3 boys, mom and dad. That was a team I had. Played sports all through grade school, high school, and college. There were teams that were really great, teams that weren't so great. Had a variety of jobs, working in athletics, working with the military, working in corporate America. A lot of teams, a lot of organizations I've been a part of. We're all part of different teams and organizations. Some of them we've probably really, really enjoyed. You got up excited to either go to work, to interact with your colleagues. you got excited to go to practice, go work out, go see some of those people. That's that culture that gets us really fired up, gets us excited and gets us motivated to keep going along the journey, whether things are going well or things aren't going well. I think about even some of the teams I was a part of that things didn't go so well. We were lucky to win some games, but yet the culture was still there, that the work ethic and the effort and the attitude were still present. And so that's some of the things that we focused on. And so there's this quote from Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I really like this idea that if you hang around great people, you become great. There's this other concept of this idea that you become the average of the 5 people you hang around most with. There's some books and some ideas around that. And the more that I've continued to look and think about that, I think that is a really true statement. Who you surround yourself with, are they working in the same direction as you? Do they have some of the same beliefs, some of the same identities that you have? I think it's one of the reasons why so many of us look for that community when we want to join a local gym or fitness center. We want to find like-minded people who are also trying to figure and navigate this world of health and fitness out. We want to do it together because that's what's going to help us when things maybe go a little bit sideways. And it allows us to see what's also possible. We can have that friend we have in the gym who maybe has been on their fitness journey a little bit longer than us. Maybe they move a little faster or lift a little bit more weight. And we can look and say, oh, they got there. I think I can get there too. And we get motivated by that. It's one of the reasons why culture is so important when we start thinking about our overall health and wellness. I mentioned that part of the name of our gym, Greater Culture, was about trying to just create a space and a community of people who are all striving to be a little bit greater, be a little bit better. That's kind of the hallmark and foundation of what we're trying to accomplish. And there's this idea that culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you worked in the corporate space, maybe you heard this. I came across it not that long ago. And I thought it was really interesting that we can spend so much time, so much energy on figuring out what's the perfect plan. Coaches spend weeks trying to figure out how are we going to beat this opponent. Corporations spend countless hours in meetings figuring out what's our strategy, how are we going to be successful, how are we going to get profit margins to go up. And what ends up happening is even if you have the most perfect laid plans, you work with a health or fitness professional, they lay out the blueprint or the map for how to get to where you want to go, strategy's perfect, everything is dialed in, it still might fall apart. Why is that? Well, because the culture, the people that make it happen, the people you surround yourself with, will play a much bigger role in how successful you're going to be compared to just what the strategy is or what the best concepts are. So if we were to look up this idea of culture and what it means in the dictionary, it's a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, practices that characterizes an institution or an organization. If you know who you want to be, if you know what your identity is, if you know what you're striving toward, why would you not want to surround yourself with like-minded people who are also pushing to make some of those same improvements and benefits? So if you've been struggling on your journey, whether it comes to movement or recovery or nutrition or things like that, figure out what is the local community I can tune into or tap into that's going to help me navigate this journey. Because there's a couple big things that culture and community are going to do when it comes to your overall health and wellness. First thing is it's going to protect your identity. You've probably seen that somebody who decides to work out consistently, eat in a way that supports their goals and their overall well-being, is seen as the outcast in today's society. You will probably get looked down upon or frowned on if you're somebody who says, I'm going to go for the grilled chicken and veggies when I'm eating out as opposed to engaging with everyone else does. It's interesting how that's the belief system that we have now. And so it can be a little bit overwhelming if we're trying to navigate this journey, and yet the majority of people are telling us, I wouldn't recommend that. I don't think you're going to do that. You're probably going to fall short. Everybody sooner or later falls off the bandwagon. But if you surround yourself with people who help and move in the direction you're trying to go, it's going to protect your identity. It's going to protect that belief you have. I'm the type of person who does this. I'm surrounded by other people who also do that. We can work together to get to where we want to be. So that's going to be important when you think about culture and your health and fitness. It's also going to help us to learn from others. Feedback, getting information from others, seeing what others are doing, figuring out what worked for them. That's going to be critical for us navigating this health and fitness journey. There's people who are way, way smarter than I am. And that's why I love referring people out to other professionals who can help. There's only so much I can do when somebody says, hey, this part of my body's been injured or nagging or a little bit achy or sore, there's great people I can refer to for others. I learn from them and try and figure out what can I do to help our clients navigate their journey a little bit better. Same thing with the culture you're a part of. How do you learn from each other? And then finally, we start looking at, it's gonna build your confidence. Confidence is simply the way you talk to yourself. Do you talk to yourself in a way that's supportive, encouraging, builds you up? Or do you talk to yourself in a way that is more self-deprecating, tears you down, beats you up? We love to obviously have self-talk that drives us in the direction we want to go. Surrounding yourself with other people who are on the journey as you is going to help build that confidence, build the belief, build your identity. And so when we start to think about how do we navigate our own health and wellness journey, there's two big pieces. There's one, identity. It has to be this belief of I can be and I am the type of person who engages in those behaviors. And then it builds on top of that with the culture. Who am I surrounding myself with? Who can I get connected to that's going to help me along this journey? And if we do those two things, we build the identity and we get surrounded by the right type of people for our culture, this is where we build fitness for life. That's going to help us to be happier, healthier, hopefully a little bit more satisfied and excited to take on whatever life might throw at us. So, I'm Brad Marshall from Greater Culture CrossFit. If you're looking for any help in navigating your health and fitness journey, there's some incredible professionals who came out here to work with all of you for this afternoon. Thank you for participating. Thanks for coming out and engaging with Nikki and I and all the speakers as we work through our sessions for this afternoon. We look forward to continuing to help you on your health and fitness journey, and we look forward to hopefully doing some more of these events in the future. If there's anything that we can do to help you, please reach out. Otherwise, thank you all so much for coming out today. We look forward to connecting with you in the town here in the upcoming days and weeks, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend. So thanks all.